A woman left a comment on a government website last year. 7 words. She wrote, "She remembers being called a Tartar as a child. She remembers the word, but she does not remember what it meant. Her parents used it casually. The way you use a word for something everyone understands. Except no one understands it anymore. Her name is Judith. She's 77 years old. She lives in Melbourne, Australia. And when I trace that single memory backward, generation by generation, book by book, map by map, I found something I was not expecting. Not a secret document, not a classified file, a disappearance. Before I go further, I need to say something clearly, because I see the same comment over and over, that this is all made up, that none of this is real. So let me be precise. Every claim in this video comes from primary sources, the Library of Congress, the Encyclopedia Britannica, published travel records, academic documents. You can verify everything. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to check. The word is Tartar, and the story of how it disappeared is not ancient history. It happened inside your family's lifetime. In 1570, a Flemish cartographer named Abraham Ortelius published what is widely considered the first modern atlas. It was called Theatrum Orbis Terrarum. Inside was a map, not a small reference, a central one, titled Tartaria, or the Empire of the Great Khan. The territory stretched across northern Asia, from the Volga River to the Pacific Ocean, from Persia to the Arctic. It was not labelled as empty land. It had boundaries. It had structure. It had identity. Even the Khan was illustrated, seated, present, defined. Nearly 2 centuries later, another cartographer updated the map, and something changed. There was no longer one Tartary. There were several. Independent Tartary, Chinese Tartary, Muscovite Tartary, Eastern and Western divisions, each with defined borders, each with named populations, each treated as a real region. This was not guesswork, it was geography. And then something happened. Not suddenly, not dramatically, quietly. The words stopped appearing. An 1885 map of Central Asia, now held by the Library of Congress, contains no mention of Tartary at all. Not as a label, not as a note, not even as a reference. Where it once existed across maps for 300 years, it is simply gone. The land didn't move. The people did not disappear. But the word that named them did. And the institution that holds more maps than any other place on Earth confirmed this. Their own specialists tracked it. From the 1300s to the 1800s, the word was everywhere. Then it vanished. Maps reflect consensus. They follow what people agree to call things. So if you want to understand what people truly believed, you look somewhere else. You look at encyclopedias, because encyclopedias are not just references. They're instructions. They tell a civilization what is considered true. Open the first edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, published in 1771. Inside, Tartary is treated as normal, routine. China is described as being bordered by it. No explanation, no hesitation. It is simply there. Now open the 9th edition. Published between 1875 and 1889, the entry is written by Peter Kropotkin, a prince, a scientist, a geographer trusted to describe the region. He writes about millions of people, living people. He describes their cities, their agriculture, their character, their distribution across provinces. This is not ancient history. This is contemporary life. Now open the 1911 edition. Just one generation later, the tense has changed. The word remains, but it has moved from present to past. The people are still there, but the name that defined them has become a memory. 3 books, on one shelf, a country, a population, a historical reference. Now apply that to a human lifespan. Someone born in 1860 grew up with Tartary on their maps. Their children saw it fading. Their grandchildren never saw it at all. That is how something disappears, not through a single event, through generations. Travel books confirm it. In 1844, travels in Tartary, Tibet and China. In 1851, Tibet, Tartary and Mongolia. In 1863, travels in Manchurian Tartary. These were not obscure texts. They were mainstream, sold in London, written by people who went there. The last known book using Tartary in its title appeared in 1925. That is within living memory. Someone's grandmother could have bought that book, and her grandchildren have never heard the word. Now I need to address the strongest counterargument, because it matters. Mainstream historians say Tartary was just a cartographic placeholder, a broad label for regions not fully understood. As knowledge improved, it was replaced with specific names. This explanation is reasonable. It explains the maps, it explains the transition, but it does not explain everything. It does not explain why, in 1944, the Soviet government issued a directive ordering the rewriting of Tartarian history. It does not explain why a CIA analyst later described the rewriting as falsification. It does not explain why that report was classified for over 40 years. If a word is simply outdated, you replace it. You do not erase it. And this is where the story becomes personal. Because if your ancestry traces through Central Asia, through Crimea, through Siberia, through the Caucasus, your ancestors were likely recorded as Tatars. Not metaphorically, officially, on documents, on ship manifests, on immigration records. The word existed, in handwriting, in records, in families, and then it stopped being passed down. I spent 3 days reading Kropotkin's entry, not because it was difficult, because it was too clear. He wrote about these people with familiarity, with respect, like neighbours, like equals. And 20 years later, the same encyclopedia reduced them to past tense. No announcement, no ceremony, no marker, just absence. That silence matters more than any theory. Because this is what erasure looks like when it is complete. Not destruction, not fire, not censorship. A word that once defined the largest territory on Earth becomes something people think was invented by the internet. A woman remembers hearing it as a child, but cannot explain it. A family owns a clock, with a map engraved on it, showing a country. No one in the house can name. The object survives. The meaning does not. That is the final stage. The Republic of Tatarstan still exists today. The people still exist. The name survived, in fragments. But the word that once held everything together is gone. Not because it was imaginary, because it was replaced, map by map, book by book, generation by generation, until the last people who knew it grew old, and their memories were mistaken for confusion, and their grandchildren never heard the word at all. The question is not whether Tartary was real. The maps already answered that. The question is, what happens to a civilization's memory when a word that lasted 300 years can disappear in 4 generations and no one remembers enough to ask where it went?